So let's try that again. Welcome to another Inside the Process Hour. I'm keeping it straight. It's Wednesday night, right? It is. Weren't we just here? That was last night. That was something different. So if you're not familiar, this is where I draw back the curtain a little bit and just share some of the process, some insights or stories or things that you might find interesting or informative, whether or not you are a musician. This is not a lesson situation. It's just things to give you food for thought and allow me to express some things by opening my mouth, which is always taking a risk. But we've talked about that before. So you'll see the link to the support page of my website if you are inclined to help me along in this endeavor, or all the endeavors I'm trying to do online, particularly the Escape from Home Hour, this, and the other things I do, like the Sunday evening hymn posts and such. If that engages you, thank you to all of you who support me in that way and allow this to keep going. So each week has a theme, and this week's theme is going to pick up kind of where last week's left off. Last week we called it the orchestra in a box, and the idea was that the piano contains the ranges, the highest and lowest notes and everything in between, of all the orchestral instruments, all the acoustically based instruments that were available at the time the piano was invented. So you can literally, at least to a point, with two hands or four hands with two players, you can replicate an orchestral arrangement of the piano, because you can be the tuba, you can be the trumpet, you can do all of that. So we're going to take the next step in something I'm calling making arrangements. So think about what that may mean while I play something. Well, that went a bunch of places. Not every place I was expecting it to go, but that's another subject. So, I get a kick out of you. You probably recognize that tune. So, making arrangements, I said, was the theme. So, if I were to say, make an arrangement, apart from music, what might be the first thing you would think of? Of course, you can't tell me, so I'm going to guess what the first thing is you might be thinking of. Maybe a flower arrangement. Right? Was I close? Okay, good. Okay, my work is done. I can stop. No, I can't. So, if you're making a flower arrangement, what are you doing? You're taking a bunch of component pieces and you're creating something aesthetically pretty. And it's kind of a subjective thing, right? There's lots of ways you can arrange flowers. And when you find something that's pretty, if it feels pretty to you, there you go. Maybe it's not pretty to the next person. It's subjective, but it's a thing. All right. So what other, and this would be a really different kind of arrangement, what other kind of arrangement could you think of? Well, flowers kind of are a part of this, but not so happy, which would be funeral arrangements. And I bring that up because that would be a good illustration of the arrangements that you do out of necessity, not out of aesthetic. I think some of you know when the True Blue Jazz Festival was happening last year down in Rehoboth, my father passed away the first night. And I was the person to be making all the arrangements. So for that whole festival, with the exception of one sort of communal hang with the Showbird before our live stream, other than when I was playing, I was in my hotel room because there's all kind of arrangements you have to make, you know, with the funeral home and on and on and on. And both ideas of arrangements are in play here when we're talking about now music. So arrangements can be desirable, or is that the word? Yeah, you're doing something because it's desirable, like with the flowers, or something because it's necessary with the other thing. So when you are playing something on the piano, you are necessarily having to arrange the notes you're playing, the way you're playing them, for both the necessity and the aesthetic or the pleasing part of it. And now this ties into what we were talking about last week with the idea of the orchestral instruments and the ranges of such. Now the one time you're not playing an arrangement is if you're playing an original piece of classical music. But other than that, anything that's played on the piano is adapted or arranged for the piano, either by being written down for a specific purpose, in a specific key, in a specific style, or improvised, in my case. So I'm sitting down and I am improvising my arrangements. So I have a friend, Scott Silbert. He's the sax player for our Showbird band, and you'll see him on a post I made today because I'm doing a live stream with him on Sunday evening with Beth McDonald. He retired recently from the Navy, 2017. I think he was the chief arranger for all the Navy bands. So if you watch anything on YouTube that any of the Navy bands did, you'll see his name in the credits there, arranged by Scott Silbert. So let's say you have a 20-piece band on stage. How do those people know what notes to play? And it's not going to work in most structured situations. That's play what you want. No, I mean everything has to come from one mind, which is of course the advantage of being at the piano. It comes from one place, but spread out across the stage, somebody has to write it down. Somebody has to come up with the arrangement and put it to paper. And Scott is he's amazing at that. And we talked about last week the idea of the orchestral reduction, so that if there's an arrangement of something, it can be played on the piano more or less because of the ability to replicate those arrangements, or those ranges. attempted to play a little bit of Moonlight Serenade, replicating the sax section in the Glenn Miller arrangement. So let me do something like that, and perhaps Scott has written a big band arrangement. Actually, Scott is debuting his big band with a Kickstarter campaign to do a CD with it. Not many big bands left. Scott's is one of them. And here's I think a Benny Goodman big band tune called Jersey Bounce. So think about how this is arranged when I play it. Think about like what you hear the bass playing, what you might hear the piano playing, what you might hear the trumpet or clarinet playing. See if you can visualize that. So it can appropriately be said that what I just played there was an arrangement of the Jersey Bounce. It was arranged for piano. Now in my case it was spontaneously arranged, and I knew what notes to play by feeling my way around and using intuition, and that's just the thing I've developed through a lifetime of doing it and understanding that that's my path. This is not the Jersey Bounce, this is a random piece of sheet music. But many people who play the piano or just play music at all will use an arrangement, will use something like this, and then what they would have to do if they were playing exactly what I played is exactly what I played would have to be written down, which is not going to happen unless somebody listens to this stream and actually transcribes it, which is possible. It's be quite an effort, but you could transcribe it and then somebody could try to play it. And that would be the process of recreating my spontaneous arrangement. But either way, whether it's written down or played extemporaneously, it is arranged. So sometimes people will say to me after I play something, "Oh, I like your arrangement." And what that tells me right away is that they probably don't get that I just improvised it. because the implication is that was a cool arrangement. Can I have the sheet music? And people ask for that. Well, no, there is no sheet music. So it's not going to be played again. So thank goodness for recordings. Now, the idea of improvised music being so prevalent in our culture, not the idea, the fact of it is, has to do with we have sound recordings available. That's a subject for another time, where when the printing press was invented, that gave rise to the ability to have music written down and distributed. And every house eventually could have a musical instrument or a piano. If you're old enough, you remember, and you were young, your mother probably played piano and you all sang around, stood around the piano and sang along. And that was all facilitated by putting music down on paper because of the ability to do that. Now we have sound recordings, and that changes the game. But there's still the idea that, well, if you played something, it must have been written down first. So therefore, it's an arrangement. There is one arrangement available of something I played. I've always purposed to try to transcribe my own playing, but it's just something I'm just not. It's not my skill set, and I'm not to the point where I'm going to pay somebody else to do it, and I don't have electronic equipment to do it with. But there's one YouTube post. It happens to be the one that's most viewed on my regular or main Joe Holt's Notes YouTube channel of On the Sunny Side of the Street. I think it's like 55,000 views or something like that now. And some years ago, somebody did a transcription of it and let me know about it. So I put a link in the description to that video. If I think about it, I'll link that up in the comments afterward. And you can watch that YouTube video of me playing that tune and then download this like 8 pages of sheet music and replicate what I played. And that would be the arrangement. Now, of course, every time I play Sunny Side of the Street, I play it differently. And we're talking about arrangements. Honestly, I don't remember much of what I did there. But one of the things I was arranging was the idea of feeling like you had that bass player. You had that component of that band. Or that was on purpose. And at one point, and I did it just to illustrate the idea of the arrangement, I was doing this. Imitating the guitar doing this while the bass player is doing this. Now that would be sort of like the jazz/pop side. There's the classical side too, which we explored more last week, about like the clarinets playing this and the cellos playing that, etc. So, repeating something I already said, maybe, hopefully, clearly, unless you were playing an original piece of classical sheet music, the way that the composer wrote it, like if you're playing Moonlight Sonata, the way Beethoven wrote it, unless you're doing that, you're playing an arrangement, or you're hearing an arrangement. So, let's create another arrangement. you go, an arrangement of Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. And it's interesting for me now because I'm thinking in terms that I'm doing this arrangement because I'm talking about arrangements. So it gets my mind a little bit more engaged than might be ideal for me. So I'm going off my notes. This made sense when I was writing my notes, but up until now I feel like I've just been saying the same thing over and over again. So now I can be a little less redundant and show some examples of arrangements. So if you play piano or know somebody who plays piano, and I'm sure that's the case for almost everyone, you will see pieces of music sitting on the person's piano, or if they're really organized, all filed away, and they'll go up on the piano one at a time. That doesn't happen here. And lots of sheet music. Now today, you can buy sheet music online. But of course it was always the case that you would go to the music store and buy sheet music. And I have a bunch of music here back from when I had some retail going on, when I had a teaching studio and stock music. So I've got some examples of different kinds of arrangements. Actually one kind of arrangement with different kinds of the one kind. Does that make sense? So if you buy an arrangement for the piano, you can buy like a piano solo arrangement, which would be what I just did essentially. Like Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, piano solo. But typically, if you buy a piece of sheet music, it says like piano vocal, where there'll be a line up top that's kind of like the lead sheet line, if you know that term. Have the melody, it may have the chords, it'll have the words to the song. And then it'll have a piano accompaniment underneath, which may or may not include the melody. So sometimes you can buy a piece of sheet music, and if you're dependent on the sheet music, you may be in trouble if the melody is not in your accompaniment, because then you're going to have to like get a singer to come over and sing with you if you want to hear the tune you thought you were playing. So it can get complicated. But the other type of sheet music is simplified sheet music, music for beginners. And I don't do a lot of teaching now, a little bit online, but back in the day, and I've brought this up before, especially when I was younger and getting started, I would go to homes and I had a pretty sizable roster of students, and I would do what my piano teacher did when he came to my house when I was 7 years old. He would go to the music store and he would pre-buy a bunch of music, and then he would show me what he has and I would pick something and then we'd pay him for it at the time. So I would do that to students' houses. And when you're a beginner, you want to be able to play familiar tunes, right? You want to be able to play stuff you like. And you can take any song and reduce it to something simple. You can take the simple and you can make it big and crazy too. So I have 3 different simplified sheet music arrangements. It'll give you sort of a sense of this. Now, this one, and it's creative. This series, these go back decades. They just happen to be my file drawer. This doesn't tell you it's simplified, so it's allowing you to not feel like you're seeing the word simplified or easy. You might feel better about things, but you kind of know it is because of the picture on the cover. And the Brimble Piano series, which you've come to understand, is a series of simplified arrangements. So let me play this little simplified love theme from The Godfather. And I'm not a good sight reader, but I can probably sight read this. Now, was everything there to make this a love theme from The Godfather? Yes. Was it the love theme from The Godfather? Yes. If I decided to play twice or more as many notes, is that more or less the love theme from The Godfather? Well, it is the love theme from The Godfather. It's the same thing. And the difference is the arrangement, right? Let's look at another one. And this one is a little fascinating to me. Send in the Clowns. Just because I know that Stephen Sondheim has what they call a through compose approach, and doesn't even like chord symbols ever attributed to what he writes, let alone things rearranged. So it's interesting that there's a very simplified version of Send in the Clowns here. A little bit more simplified, really, than this. We're going from more complex to less here in these three things. And one of the things you're going to do when you simplify is you're going to make things easier to understand. Sometimes you put things in easier keys, which has happened here, and then you even change the way things are notated, something called the meter signature. Send in the Clowns has like alternating measures of 12/8 and 9/8. If you're doing it correctly, you don't need to know what that means. Just know that this says 3/4, which is not 12/8 or 9/8. So that idea is simplified, and a lot fewer notes here. So let me play this. I am proud of myself. I didn't play a single extra note. I played exactly what's there. Do you realize how much control that takes from me? But actually it sounds perfectly fine. You know, simplified doesn't mean doesn't sound like a tune or sounds bad. You know, the texture is thinner. You know, but you can imagine I'm not going to play Send in the Clowns. I'm going to play around with this next one a little more. One more. Oh, and now this says, oh, I forgot to say this. So here's how the John Sham arrangements get around saying simplified. John W. I don't even know how to say his name, Sham. Fun to play piano solos. Right? Fun to play. As opposed to excruciating to play if there are a lot of notes, right? So here's one more. You recognize this if you can see it, the rainbow connection. It says, made easy for piano. All right, fine. Comes as advertised. Now here, only on a couple of occasions do we have more than two notes at a time. One in the left hand, one in the right hand. There's two occasions, two measures where you have little thirds or something in the right hand. But typically, pretty straightforward. You know this. So, going off my script here, the idea of a piano arrangement is a utilitarian thing. It's something that allows you to communicate a song. And just because there's an arrangement that somebody wrote in a piece of sheet music, whether it's simple or complex, unless it's the original note for note arrangement, or really you'd say composition, which is always the case with classical music, seldom the case with popular music. You know, who's to say that one arrangement isn't better than, or worse, or whatever than somebody else's? Who's to say that if you're not playing it according to the sheet music, you're playing it inferior? Actually, I think once you learn the components of arranging, you can play probably something superior to what's on the sheet music, even regular sheet music, not just simplified. So the idea is, if you're a student of music, especially piano, eventually be your own arranger. And you can start with that with beginner students. When you're learning the basics of theory, if you learn what to do with them as you're doing it, you're learning how to build arrangements of tunes, which of course is what I do whenever I play a tune. So let's shove this and let me play the Rainbow Connection and see where that takes me. Now, because this was a simplified arrangement, one thing it left out was that little interlude. So when you were arranging things, you're arranging notes, you're arranging rhythm, you're arranging also the pulse, the feeling. And that's something we've talked about. Ultimately, it's about what you're feeling. So I'm going to see what I'm feeling, and we'll see what Kermit the Frog thinks. Just checking my text to make sure no one's texting me saying, hey, the stream's not working. So, looks like we're good. All right, so I've said several times now that unless you're playing an original piece of classical music, you're probably playing an arrangement. But there are also plenty of arrangements of classical music. If you're playing something orchestral, it has to be arranged for the piano. But even pieces written for the piano can be arranged for the piano, especially if they're complex and you want to make them simple. So simplified arrangements of complex classical pieces, or even like ragtime. This is coming to mind. I should have put some Scott Joplin up here. I didn't think about it, but so that's how he wrote it. You could have a simplified arrangement. That would be like your early grade simplified. You might have a next grade simplified. And so forth. I guess that's okay with ragtime music, but for me, classical music is something that you don't mess with, because it's written, all the notes are written with the same purpose as like the melody and the chords are that a songwriter would write. And the composers, all of the major classical composers, wrote music of all kinds of different difficulty levels, and including writing specifically pieces for either children or students. So back when I was teaching music, I would not, or teaching a lot more piano, I would not provide simplified arrangements of classical pieces. But I'd have the students play classical pieces from very, very early on, because all the composers gave us wonderful pieces to play. So I have a couple of examples here. All right. One, a little Bartók thing. Oh, this book, which I discovered maybe 10 years ago when I had a student order it, because it's one I've always used, my favorite classic. But it's been out of print for like probably decades. So you can't get, there's plenty of collections of classical music. This is not a method book. This is not, the book that starts you playing, see the clock handle tick and Humpty Dumpty and all that stuff. These are the easy early grade classical pieces, and this is graded. So as you go through the book, they get more and more difficult. And this would be the staple of the teaching for me. So this little Bartók thing, Bartók would be a much more contemporary composer than many, and so the sound's a little different. That's the only one I'll play all the way through, because as I was starting it, I remember what the students said years ago, which I thought was cool. This doesn't portray someone who lost, like a girl who lost her doll. This is the portrayal of a doll who lost her girl, which I thought was really cool. But then when you're able to go that direction, then the music is doing what it's supposed to do. It's communicating the feeling. It's taking you someplace, right? And I don't know if actually Bartók titled that The Lost Doll or not. I've come to find that there are a lot of actual errors in this series. If I were starting over, I probably wouldn't have used it, but it served me well enough. So let's contrast that with a little Baroque thing from Rameau, a French contemporary of Bach, a little minuet. And I won't play any more. And there's one note down there, not two like I played. And you can hear stylistically it's very different than Bartók. But as far as I know, these are the exact notes that these composers wrote. And if you want to benefit from the genius of the composers, play the exact notes they wrote. Play the pieces that they wrote for whatever level you are. I picked another one here because I always like this one. But I just put the wrong page number down, so let me look. This is the more contemporary composer. Late Romantic, I guess. And the title in this book, and I've seen this title before, but I've seen other titles and I can't remember what they are. It's called The Organ Grinder. But this works. I enjoy giving this to students because you can picture the hurdy-gurdy, the monkey, the whole thing. But to me that's cool. Now, it could be that this was orchestral and arranged for piano, but I would imagine this was written for piano. I could be wrong about that. And written exactly like this, not simplified. And then there are a couple of pieces in here from Schumann's album for the young. That's a well-traveled path. One of them I played and improvised on in one of the Escape live streams. Okay, this one's further back in the book, so it's slightly more demanding, but it's still be considered easy, not really even intermediate yet. Or this one. Just me. When I know I'm getting out, I start embellishing what's here. I can't do it. I can't play the notes on the page. Well, I mean, I can for like 30 seconds. So, one more. And this one, everyone recognizes. One of the little Bach minuets from the little notebook. And I'll play it the way it's written. I will not take repeats for the sake of time. So all of those pieces from the classical composers give the early grade student the opportunity to play real classical music. And then you have all these arrangements that you can make of anything else in order to put it at the level you are. So you can be playing music, from the early stages and just get more and more complex. But you can also take something like this and make an arrangement of it. You can extrapolate from it, which is, of course, what I always do, whether I want to or should or not. It's just what happens. So let me play a little arrangement. In fact, I'll put my tablet in front of here so you know I can't read the music. I could have just closed the book. I'll play it straight first for a few notes. So technically, that went beyond an arrangement, kind of, into a broader interpretation. So one of the projects that I might do, and I've released a lot of recordings independently over the years, and many of them are no longer available, and I've moved on from them. Some I keep out there. And in my kitchen, over here behind the piano, yes, in my kitchen, it's a big shelving unit with boxes and boxes of CDs from previous releases. And I've had different concept projects. And one that I might do someday is a takeoff on the idea of theme and variations, which is a classical composition approach where you play a theme and then you write, embellishments on it. But I would call it theme and improvisations. So that's more what that was. So, last point. To improvise an arrangement puts me at a tremendous advantage because I will improvise within my comfort zone in terms of ability to play. One reason that it comes off that I can play effortlessly, perhaps, if that's what it looks like, or I'm not struggling to play, I'm not laboring in certain passages, is because I'm not making myself play anything that I would have to struggle or labor to play. And that's part of the discipline of improvising, when you have to learn. And not everybody really gets there, because sometimes for some musicians, it's fun to try to play something and see if it'll work. I want to be comfortable with it being able to communicate before I play it. It's just like I will sit here for a second or two and wait for the right word. I'm not gonna just randomly say words and hope the words made sense. It's enough of a crapshoot as it is. So I'm going to be purposefully playing words, purposely speaking words, purposely playing notes. I'm not going to play it, but this piece of sheet music, and this may be one, if it's not the one I had when I was a kid, it looks old enough, but it's not written in, then it's a piece of sheet music I bought later, replicated, because Thunder and Blazes or Entry of the Gladiators. The circus theme was one my teacher gave me when I was, 9, 10, 11. Right? But that's not the way this is written. It's written actually really awkwardly. It's like you have to struggle to play it clean and not make mistakes. And if I were arranging this, it's like I would voice the chord differently, or this one thing here, which is kind of almost impossible. And they give you the option to play part of it in single notes, and it's like, no, that's the tuba. Arrange it like that. So if I were writing this arrangement, I would play it completely differently. Now, when my teacher, when I was however old I was 7 when I started with him. It was like the first teacher, and all I did was play things on toy instruments before that. He would come. He was 78 years old, Mr. Schmidt, and he would come to my house, and he would only play what was written. And so to him, Thunder and Blazes was this piece of sheet music. And now I can understand, hey, one of the reasons I can make it better is I can customize it to myself. So I'm not saying that I have the best arranging ability. I'm saying I'm the best person to arrange what I'm going to play, and fortunately I'm able to do that. So having said that, let me play one more tune. Arranged the way I want to arrange it. I wonder what that will be. could have danced all night. Might have been a challenge to dance to that, though. All right, I want to make a, not an announcement, but an FYI. What I'm doing with these escape hour, not the escape hours, the inside the process hours, now that I'm a little bit into it and I kind of know what's going on, and that there is some positive response to it, which I'm grateful for. I'm actually backing it up with my camcorder, and the reason I back up these streams and don't try, there might be a way to actually save the video from the stream as it goes out, is a lot of times the stream will get disrupted or have little burps in it because my internet's not really cool. So I get a clean copy with my camcorder, and I am uploading all of them to YouTube. I've got the last 2 weeks ready to go. The first 3 are already up on my website. And so hopefully within a week of when I do this, I'll have it up on YouTube, which means you'll have it as a resource if you want to look at it again on one page on the Inside the Process tab on my website, which is right under the Escape from Home tab, where I have links to some of those streams. For those, I say select weeks. Maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks, I'll save, and older Escape from Home hours are going to go away. And I'll be actually deleting a lot of them from Facebook probably this week, but leaving all of them up at least for a month. But unless I have a completely horrible week where I just really embarrass myself, I'm going to see if I can put all of these up. And the topics will be there. So that way it's easily shareable if you know somebody who would be interested, or if you want to go back and look at them again. And I'm going to try to keep that going. So just be aware that that is a resource. And again, on my website there is a support tab which gives options to help me along, and if this is something that you think you want to stay engaged with or you might find some use for, consider helping me along with a one-time drop in the PayPal tip jar. The Patreon is kind of a spin on that. The advantage for you is that you'll get regular exclusive content from me that nobody else has, and there's also the mail option. So keep in touch with me, and also on the Facebook page, because you're watching me on Facebook, so you know how to find my page. The events for Friday's live stream with Sharon Sable, the Blossom Dearie tribute show, is up. I hope you will consider that. That is going to be, we're very proud of that. Sharon and I are very proud of what we put together for that. And then a wonderful evening on Sunday with my good friend Beth McDonald, and also my friend and fellow Shilbertshire, Scott Silbert, the retired Navy Band arranger. Beth is a wonderful singer-songwriter and also tips the hat to Peggy Lee. And we're going to be live streaming from Blue House Productions in Silver Springs on Sunday night. And then I announced last night, if you are local to Chestertown, I did find out today that my set is 45 minutes for the Chestertown Art Walk. They're going to be debuting the new Arts and Entertainment District piano. They're going to be putting it outside. I imagine it's an upright piano and an artist has painted it or something. And my set is at 1:30, so if you're wandering around downtown Chestertown, come over and say hi, and hopefully I'll see you again, maybe next week. So, thanks.